we just watched one of the greatest sci-fi films probably of all time. I mean, Dune Part 2.
The greatest.
Yeah, like, wow.
We knew.
We knew
Denny was going to cook.
Like, what? I was honestly like, I knew it was going to be good. And I knew it was going to be epic. But it was perfect. It was a perfect film. To me, it was perfect. Like, not one flaw. The whole time. I was in shock.
Yeah.
Well, that's the podcast.
Immediately coming out of it, again, I'm just like, I need to watch this again.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, you go through so much. It really felt like I watched the whole series.
Just in like
when I finished watching
Part 2.
Yeah.
Just in a Part 2. I think what Denny does really well is pace. The pace of not only Part 1, but of Part 2 are near perfection. Like, not a single thing is rushed. And though it takes, quote unquote, its time, being a 3-hour, like almost 3-hour movie, I'm never bored. And every single piece of dialogue, every single scene is crucial to the plot. It makes sense. It makes the story push forward. We're always churning. We're always going down the tracks of like where we're leading down to. And like the journey that we go through, not only in Part 1, but Part 2, is just so massive in scale. It's just like, it's perfect. Like, it's just like...
It honestly flies by, and it's like a 3-hour movie.
And I want more.
Yeah.
You're sitting there.
Denny didn't fold after the first one, because I know everyone was saying, oh, the first one's really slow. I'm glad he didn't fold. Like, it didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel rushed at all. Like, every scene, he really took his time.
And you need the first one to be like that in order for the second one to work. That's why it's Part 1, Part 2. Like, both work hand in hand to create this cohesive, massive film. And what I'm really interested in is, like, I was talking to my brother, and my brother's like 15, and he said, I could have sat there for another 3 hours and watched him go to war in space. Like,
for real.
Like, I could have sat there for a 6-hour movie. I don't even care. Like, I was so engaged the entire time.
I want more.
That you just want more. And what a lot of people may not know is, so Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2 are actually just one book. So it's not like the Hunger Games, where Hunger Games is one book per movie. Dune 1 and 2, the movies, are actually just one sole book. So that's just Dune. Then we go into the second book, which is right there, which is Dune Messiah, which we get set up for in Dune Part 2. Like, it's almost confirmed, not gonna lie, that we're getting a Dune 3. Like, it's honestly a must that he must, like, do this trilogy. Like, he set it up with Anya Taylor-Joy being, like, the sister, and, like, just, like, the war, like, about to lead it. Yeah. Oh, yes. I mean, if you're on the podcast, you know you're getting it. We're getting into it. But, like, I feel like everything's led up to, like, potentially being one of the greatest sci-fi trilogies of all time. Like, especially knowing the capable hands that we're in with Denis Villeneuve and the cast and Hans Zimmer and the cinematographer Greg Fraser. Like, everyone's like, we're in. Denis calls, we go. That's what everyone has said. And of course we're getting a 3. Like, we have to.
And if you watched our last podcast, I mean, the same thing goes. Like, everything that was great about Dune 1, it's even better in Dune 2.
Yeah,
like, Denis just really just elevates it even more.
Like, I feel like he tops himself. Like he tops...
Action, so much better. Cinematography, even better.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
It's honestly just such a artful film. So much art goes into it and so much creativity goes into it. And it was even brought out even more in the second one because of, like, the massive scale that we were going to get. Like, that first movie didn't rush. It set the plot. It set the tone. It set the pace. Then we come to the second movie, and yes, the second movie is more action-packed, but it still doesn't just blow things up to blow things up, or just, like, threat level, like, world-level threats just to have a world-level threat. Like, it's actually concocted and brewed and meticulously laid every plot point in Dune that when that final war scene hits, it hits. like the worms crashing down, the storm
It's
coming
crazy.
from the other side,
It's honestly
like
crazy.
them hitting them on all fronts, like it's like insane.
Seeing that junk in IMAX, 70 mil was just
Yeah,
like
70 mil. I felt like I was
Scream.
riding that worm with Timothy Chalamet. Like I thought I was like in that movie.
right in the worm.
Yeah.
No, those worms are crazy.
No, like Dune to me is like one of those great adventure films, those great sci-fi films that it's like they don't come all that often. And when I was sitting there in the theater, like leading up to me even just wanting to go to the theater, I was like I felt like a little kid. I was so excited to go to the theater and go watch this film because I was like genuinely wanting to be there. I wanted to be glued in my seat. I wanted to be locked in. I wanted it. And then seeing it, I was like almost brought to tears on just the epicness of like what I was witnessing on screen. Like the pure massive, not only like landscape shots, but like just like everything was massive. Like which is like even
hordes
like
of people on
like those
screen.
people shots
The
were, like,
giant
crazy.
worms
Yeah.
coming out of the sand. You know?
Like it makes you feel scale.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like a lot of big action films are missing is like that feeling of scale. You know, like a lot of recent Marvel movies, they have on paper a large scale event. The world's gonna end, the universe is gonna get collapsed, someone's eating a planet, but they don't feel massive. That scale I don't feel it, you know, because it's just like, you know, it's just paced so poorly, done so mid. But like, Dune, you feel every punch, every knife fight, every stab and scream and explosion. You feel it all, and it's
But
just
also the VFX are just like
yeah. What?
that's
Why are they
looks
perfect?
real.
Everything looks real, and they're running sandworms. Like, how is the VFX of Dune so
We're
good?
running sandworms and we're seeing the whole world that these people live in and
Yeah, like we're like crawling in the desert.
everything is so
you feel
believable.
it. You feel it the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like, and I love the way they mix VFX with like real, tangible items, like real effects. Like
Yeah.
even like the little baby worm and stuff. Like that thing's like a puppet. That thing's a real little worm like scurrying around.
And the insert shots of like
Yeah.
the big worms, you know?
Yeah, like and like the insert. Yeah, like when he's riding it, he's like actually on a platform. He's actually on like something you can grasp. Like
Yeah.
it's honestly just so impressive how much thought and detail that went into every single bit of Dune Part 2.
Exactly.
And
And they didn't really need to show that. I think that's what Denny does so well is like that scene where Timothy's actually riding the worm. We see the whole process, the entire process from him like finding the right place to hit the ground, you know, to setting the thumper. What's it called?
Yeah,
Is it called a thumper?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like angling, jumping. We see the whole process, and then we see him struggling, trying to like. I feel like if it wasn't Denny, if it was just some other scrub director.
he would have just rode the worm.
It would have cut. He would have just literally rode the worm. Hop on, boom. You know, easy.
But it's
That's
like
it.
that little detail, the little nuance of like
The insert
action.
shots of like
Yeah.
the worm's skin, like
Yeah.
reacting to Timothy Chalamet's like grapple hook thing. You know, like we see the whole process. So sick.
Yeah, it's honestly just an impressive movie. Like, I need to see it again though. There's so much that happens that this is just like me going off first viewing, and I think it's perfect. But there's so many undertones, just like Part 1, that might have flew over most people's heads. And though I have an advantage because I read the book, I know exactly what's supposed to be happening, and I read the text. There are changes to like the Part 2. So some of the biggest changes of Dune Part 2 from the book is the fact that like the sister is actually not born in the movie. In the book, she's born and she's a full like human, and everyone thinks she's like a demon. Everyone in the tribe hates her because she's like speaking at the age of like 2. Like she's having whole conversation, like real intellectual conversations, and like telling people's futures and stuff. Like she's a little weirdo. But in the movie, which I think is much better, she's in the womb the whole time. And those shots of just like
Speaking through her mom.
Yeah, speaking through her mother. And like the shots of like the baby in the womb and like the
that did look
voiceover.
really cool.
Like it's honestly
That
so
was really
sick.
interesting.
Yeah, it's a really interesting choice like to do that. And I really like also another change is that instead of Paul Atreides, Timothy Chalamet's character, being the person that's almost selfish in a way, like in the book, he kind of does everything for him and he doesn't really care. Like he's just going forward with his plan and he wants to do it. Instead, in the movie, it's more of the mother forcing that message, forcing the ideas. And I really like that dynamic.
I really like that change better because I really like Timothy's whole character arc within this movie. I feel like he has a lot stronger character arc than he did in the first part.
Yeah.
You know, like him almost like fighting to be the one. Like he kind of just wants to...
He doesn't want to do it.
He doesn't want to be the chosen one, per se. He doesn't want to be God.
Yeah.
He wants to like win this war with the Fremen, you know? So that was really interesting.
And I really like that struggle of like, if I go to the south,
he knows his raps.
I'm going to become God. Like,
he
that's
knows he'll be manipulated
happening.
for sure. Or at least he's going to see things that he knows is going to be too far gone.
And I really like how strong they made also Chani's and Dea's character. In the book, she's not that strong-headed. Like, she doesn't really have a say or anything. Or she's not, like, really that against Paul. Like, but in the movie, it's a much better dynamic. Especially, like, I feel like, in my opinion, I feel like the movie handles its female characters better than the book does.
Yeah.
And I feel like it empowers them, makes them a lot stronger.
Yeah.
Whether good or bad. You know, the mom, I think, is like a dark character now. Like, she's bad. Whereas in the book, she was scared of Paul.
Yeah.
Chani was just going along with everything because she thought he was the one. In the book, Chani thinks Paul is the one. But in the movie, she's the one saying, nah, like, he's not, like, I don't care what y'all say. Like,
she kind of represents the Fremen side of...
Like, the kind of logical,
arc,
like...
You know, like, let's win this together, you know?
Yeah. And then he just, like, spits in her face. He's like, I love you forever, but I'm gonna go marry this other
That's
chick.
why that part hurt so bad, because, like, through the whole movie, you know, they're getting a closer bond, you know, Timothy's trying to become one with the Fremen.
Yeah.
But then he's forced to go to the south, you know, pretty much forced to.
He has to go to the south, and then, like, he has to make that tough decision. And it's like...
Yeah.
To become emperor and to truly be free, to free the Fremen and the House of Atreides, I have to become the emperor. That's the only way back in. He has to take down.
He's seen the future. He's seen the past. He knows.
So he knows what he has to do, and he knew it was coming, and it's just he couldn't do nothing to stop it. Which is really interesting that he has that power that he can't even stop it. Even though he sees it, he can't stop it. So it's like how much is preordained in his journey.
Yeah.
Which makes it so interesting. So in comparison, for me, to me, the Dune Part 1, Part 2, those are like my Star Wars. Like, I wasn't born with the original Star Wars. I didn't see those in theaters. I didn't wait to go see them.
Yeah.
I waited to go see the Dune in theaters. And I feel like it gives that same feeling to our generation as that generation of Star Wars did.
Yeah.
And in my opinion... After seeing the Star Wars movies don't get me wrong, those are beloved movies of mine. Like, some of my best childhood memories come from Star Wars. But to me, as a film, as a Part 1, Part 2, I think Dune and the potential of a third, from a filmmaking standpoint, is much superior. Like, it's far superior of a film. Because it takes those ideas of Star Wars, like, and it piggybacks off of it. And not a lot of people realize that Star Wars was actually... influenced by Dune the book. The book of Dune influenced Star Wars.
Old book.
And then now that we're getting the actual like text that influenced those movies, Dune now has its own cinema masterpiece, and I feel like is gonna surpass those in my opinion. Just like from lore standpoint, world building, film technique, character arcs, I think are way better. Like, the way characters are handled are way better. And the fact that, like, Star Wars was supposed to be a one-off film. Like, you got to remember that our original Star Wars movie was supposed to be the first one, and that's it. They weren't expecting it to do so good. The fact that Empire Strikes Back was a great sequel, that wasn't really supposed to happen. Whereas Dune is so calculated, it's supposed to be a Part 1 and a Part 2, and we're supposed to get a 3. So it's like, the arcs of characters, the way everything's going to develop, to me is going to be much more significant and like better laid than like I think the original Star Wars trilogy would be, in my opinion.
I know, I agree with you. Yeah, and we kind of have a bias just because of we weren't born around that time. I'm sure people who were born around the original Star Wars, that chunk's connected to their heart.
I mean, yeah.
But, like,
just
Dune
like
came out in my time. This is my Star Wars. Let me have my Star Wars.
Yeah, like honestly, it's just and it doesn't help the fact that like since we're in our 20s now and like we're filmmakers ourselves, like we're also able to appreciate the filmmaking of Dune. So I feel like that's why I'm even more connected to it, especially in our landscape today. Like the 70s and 80s, or the 70s really, was like prime cinema. Like that was like a goated era of films when like Star Wars was coming out. So like they were getting treated well. Then the 80s we had to drop off, and then the 90s came back with a flourish. I feel like we had a drop off like from like 2010 to 2020 was not so hot of a 10-year span. There's some great movies within there, like 2014, 2016, 2019.
I feel like the past 4 years
it's since COVID. Since COVID, we had a drop off of movies.
Because 2016 to like 2019.
Nah, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. 2019.
Actually, I would say even 2014.
2014 to 2019.
2014 to 2019 was pretty solid. But like, yeah, since COVID hit, everything
it's just
changed.
been really bad, and we've had a lot of misses, especially in the epic department, like the blockbuster department. They've just been crappers.
Yeah.
So to get this is very refreshing and beautiful to see, and I feel like hopefully studios take a look at Dune and they're like, oh wow, you can be artistic and actually make a good movie and it can do well.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that like studios are giving, you know, dedicated directors that actually care so much money to like create these huge blockbuster movies that are actually quality, you know?
Yeah, like the fact that studios are giving Denis Villeneuve, this like art house, like Canadian director,
and Nolan for real.
Nolan, Denis Villeneuve, and I think Greta Gerwig's gonna start getting money thrown her way, which I hope she does, especially for the Narnia movies. Greta Gerwig about to make some fire Narnia movies, I'm telling you. But like, I feel like if we start feeding actual talented directors and the directors that want to do, like some directors
start giving them the money.
Start giving them the money. We'll actually get some really great, you know, noteworthy pieces of cinema. And yeah, Dune Part 2 is amazing. Dune Part 2 is amazing.
It's good to see Marvel's downfall, for real.
Yeah, we were rooting for that. I was rooting for that for a while.
Name the last 3 Marvel movies and then name the directors. You don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just bad. It's just bad.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Dune Part 2, phenomenal. I don't know what, like, there's so much, like, oh, the cinematography. Let's talk about, like,
well, yeah, I mean,
how
like,
they shot it.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's like, what else is there to say besides, like,
it's like,
it's just amazing.
The way they filmed Dune Part 2, they used IMAX cameras and the RE Alexa like LF camera to do the regular 70mm stuff. And essentially I was doing research and it's actually, they did not film on film. They actually filmed it digitally and then
they transferred
it to film and then transferred it back to digital to create a less sharper image on purpose, because when Denis Villeneuve and Greg Fraser were doing tests, when they shot it on film, it looked quote-unquote too dated. It looked too old. But when they filmed strictly on digital and just did a digital print, it looked too crisp. It looked too good. So what they did was made a middle ground by shooting it digitally and converting it to film and then converting it back. So just this like conversion process to slightly give some grain and some texture to the image that we're seeing. So they actually didn't film it on IMAX 70mm. But the fact that we have prints is because they converted it to it.
Yeah.
So
Greg Fraser's like a genius of texture. Like if you notice a lot of his films, there's always some sort of texture on there. Especially like what he did with the Batman, where he's like literally adding like wax and stuff on the lenses just to give it some texture.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, especially like in this digital age of cinematography where everything looks so sharp and so clean. It kind of gets stale.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of looks too real and it loses that cinematic touch to it, you feel. So
yeah, like there's some movies that just like, we have an Alexa, I can tell, I know.
It looks too clean.
Like they all look the same.
It looks like a commercial.
Yeah,
you know?
like dude, like Men looked like a car commercial. It literally looked like a car commercial. But then there's like movies that they're using the same exact camera, the Alexa Mini, and it's Revenant, and it looks phenomenal. I feel like it's, in this day and age of filmmaking, we have so many different equipment. Like, there's so much more equipment in this day and age of filmmaking, digital wise, and so many tricks and gadgets, and it all comes down to using what services your story the best. What type of camera, what type of lens, does it need that texture, does it need to be sharp? Like, these thoughts and choices may not always run through a lot of filmmakers' heads, which I'm sure it does in some capacity, but I feel like they don't think about it as much as like a Greg Fraser or a Roger Deakins or like a Hoyt. Like, I feel like some of the best cinematographers are the best cinematographers because they are creative with
they know what
their choices.
Suits the film, you know?
They are servicing the film to its fullest, and that's why it's so gorgeous to look at, especially Dune. Like, it's just a gorgeous, massive blockbuster. And they're filming on location. They're filming in the United Arab Desert or whatever. Like, they're literally in a full desert.
Jordan. Yeah.
They're in Jordan. Like, they're actually, like, going to places and filming and, like, going to, like, Mexico and, like, filming all around the world to create one Dune, to create Arrakis, you know? And I feel like sometimes that's also missing with a lot of blockbusters is they'll just go on a soundstage. They'll just go on a green screen. They'll go on a LED screen and, like, pass it off. But we know what it looks like. You can never beat the realness of an actual desert. Like, for example, like Avatar, you guys filmed on a massive LED screen. I can tell. I know you're on an LED screen. It looks like it. Not all the time, but majority of the time. We know it's fake. Whereas Dune, you're like, they're in a cave. They're in the desert, they're in sand. They're riding that worm. I don't know. Like, they're just...
Nah, those worms look too real, bro.
No, they're like out there, bro. And that's why it's so good. Like,
next time I'm out in the desert, I'm just gonna be like...
Yeah, just like the reference. The reference of Dune. But mandatory rewatch. I feel that
even though, like, I felt like I got pretty much everything.
I mean, yeah, but like, you still would.
I know the first. I mean, yeah, I definitely still want to rewatch.
The first one's a little bit more complex than the second one, in my opinion, as far as like houses and politics and world building goes.
Yeah, because you're first getting introduced to this whole world.
By the second one, you should know where you're at.
Things.
Yeah.
The second one, you pretty much know where you're at, what's going on. It's a lot easier to follow. So like, I feel like I was actually able to pretty much get everything on the first go around. But yeah, I still definitely do want to rewatch for sure.
Because I feel like I just want to appreciate little details now in the second watch. I want to appreciate the little things.
Exactly.
Right now, it's the first viewing. I'm just like.
Still in awe.
Away. I'm just like, oh my god,
you know,
this is amazing. This is cinema.
Exactly.
But yeah, like, I don't know. There's just so many. Like, what we already said it all. There's so many like great things.
I do want to bring up the whole black and white sequence, which is so sick.
Oh yeah.
So Greg Fraser actually shot. Yeah. And used infrared lenses for that entire scene.
Yeah, so everything on like
so interesting.
The Harkonnen planet.
Yeah.
They used infrared like lenses, right? And to even like do the exterior shots versus the interior shots, costumes had to be doubled and switch colors.
They had to have different
just to have that infrared thing.
Just to keep it consistent.
It's
really interesting.
Yeah, and the choice behind it is because on the planet Harkonnen, they have a blacked out sun. So that's how they figured it would look. If it was like a blacked out sun, it's almost everything's inverted. So to use an infrared lens was like the best choice to get that across. And even things like that, I think is phenomenal. That's a phenomenal choice. They could have easily just shot in black and white and boom, we're done. But no, they chose to do an
or just convert it later in black and white.
Yeah.
They shot it in black and white.
They shot it in that infrared.
They were committed. It's no going back.
And it's like crazy, even down to like the details of like those like imploding liquidy fireworks. Like everything was so cool and fresh and gorgeous and yeah. And then I want to also touch on Austin Butler had a great performance.
No, he killed it.
Austin Butler killed it.
He killed it. He's actually really good, like, not just acting visually, but with his voice.
Yeah, he changed up his voice.
Bro can manipulate his voice.
I mean, he's played Elvis. He's played, like, a hippie in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like, thinking he's the devil. Like,
I forget that's him. I really
like, he's done a lot of really good character work. He's a really good character actor, and he can really, like, put himself into, like, something completely different.
Reminds me of, like, a Christian Bale, you know, from, like, back then.
Yeah. He
like
is
chameleon. Like a chameleon.
Yeah, he can just do it pretty much all. So I'm excited to see. He's definitely up and coming. I'm excited to see him. I mean, Timothy, yeah.
Timothy killed it. Timothy's gonna shut up all the haters, bro, for real.
What a performance.
But Timothy killed that job.
He was masterful. Everyone had a great performance.
After watching the first one, I was curious to see how Timothy would, like, become scary, you know? Because you look at Timothy, he's just like, oh, he's like a little teenage kid, you know? But, bro, no, when he had that switch up in the movie, I felt that junk.
Especially when he talks.
It hit, he felt powerful. Silence, you know? Like, dang, that scene hit.
One of my favorite scenes of the whole film is when he chooses to own up to the one and make it bold and make a statement. He's like, I'm the one.
And that whole scene looks gorgeous.
That's one of the best sequences of the whole movie. And it's dialogue. It's a dialogue-driven scene. But it's one of the best sequences. I mean, the massive wides with the pockets of light coming through the cave and just seeing people as far as the eye can see, to, like, him, like, getting close up with the lens and him just, like, yelling and, like...
None of you can defeat me!
Yeah, he's like, who can do it? Because you're scared. And, like, he's, like, calling everyone out. Like, that whole sequence was so pivotal to the character of Paul Atreides, and if Timothée Chalamet didn't get it right, I would have never been sold.
If I didn't feel
it,
actually, like, dang, this guy's actually him, then it just would have not played well at all.
Like, I wouldn't believe it, but now I feel like, no, he's Paul Atreides, and he could take over the whole universe. Like, he can do it.
Yeah, I think just the whole cast, honestly, like,
everyone's really feel like even Zendaya had a phenomenal performance too, especially dealing with that conflict of, like, he's the one, but I love him, and, like, I know
they had a lot of really good, like, visual acting.
Like, nothing was like nothing's ever over explained in the Dunes. Nothing is, like, really, like, told to you. You kind of just have to figure it out slowly but surely, and that's why I think it's masterful filmmaking, because he still gets his point across without explaining or talking your ear off with that point. So I think it's really, like, phenomenal in the way he does.
I also love how so many characters have so many different motives. Like, Josh Brolin's character has completely different motives for completely different reasons. You know, I don't know the names. I'm just gonna keep calling by their actor's name. Rebecca Ferguson's character, you know, completely different motives for completely different reasons. And then Zendaya's character, and then Stilgar. That's one of the names I remember. Stilgar's character. It's like, oh my god,
Javier Bardem, the goat.
They all, like, kind of want similar things, but for completely different reasons. You know, and it's so interesting.
And that's another thing that I think Denny handled really well, is the fact that we have such a large A-list ensemble cast.
Yeah.
But every single character feels nice and full, feels nice and, like, lived through, and everyone has their moment to shine. And there's, like, 8 or 9 A-list actors in this movie. Like, everyone feels like no one's getting overpowered. Everyone's working in tangent.
They don't feel like actors. Like, when I see Josh Brolin, I'm like, that's not Thanos. You know, that's not Josh Brolin. That's you know, his character. You know, and, like, same with Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya. Like, they're pretty popular actors right now, but it's like I see them as their characters when I'm watching the movie, and that's what's like. That's a good feat for an actor.
Even, like, Florence Pugh, like, she's just like a whole other thing, and then we're gonna get Anya Taylor-Joy.
Anya Taylor-Joy makes a reference.
Like, that one
did take me by surprise. I was like, oh shoot, it's Anya Taylor-Joy, but then I immediately get locked back in, you know. But yeah, it was cool to see her. She's gonna kill it.
No, she's gonna be crazy.
I hope she gets a lot of screen time in the next movie.
I think she will, because she's old. Like, I think there's gonna be a time jump, because there's a time jump in the book. But Anya Taylor-Joy to be added to this whole mix.
This already stacked cast is so sick.
Dude, because the sister's scary.
Yeah,
scary.
I'm hyped, man. I'm really hyped for this next one. Like, I'm totally immersed. I'm totally involved with this world now.
Yeah.
Or committed is the word.
And I feel like a lot of people were 50-50 on the first movie just because of just because. It came out in, like, 2021, so COVID still, like, hit the movie a little bit, like as far as box office was concerned.
Yeah.
But I feel like this movie is being a very big catalyst for people to go back and watch that first one and then come back into
really
this.
Gonna hook them in.
And then they're realizing like, oh wow, because like I see the popularity on social media of Dune Part 2 being like, this is amazing. Like that's the general consensus, and I really love to see that now it's coming around. Like now we understand the vision, or like, at least the mass can understand the vision of like what Denny is trying to accomplish here.
I'm glad, because Denny really deserves it, man. He's really put in a lot of work for these films. And his past films, even with Blade Runner and Dune, like, bro puts in work to create these films to life. And I'm glad he's finally getting the recognition he deserves.
Yeah, I mean, he's Blade Runner, Arrival, Sicario.
After complete flop of Blade Runner. It's like, come on,
Enemy, man. Prisoners. Like, he literally has a bunch of 5 out of 5
Bro's
films.
consistently making bangers, so like...
Unsung Gi is a phenomenal film, too. Like,
yeah, man, like...
He's crazy. He's crazy.
Yeah.
I can't honestly think of anything else to touch on. I mean, it was just like a masterpiece.
The good movies are always so hard, because it's like,
because we run through it so quick. We're just like going about
you don't have to move.
I don't know, man. Who knows? This weekend Kung Fu Panda 4 comes out.
Kung Fu Panda 4.
Okay.
I heard that's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. The other Kung Fu Panda's pretty good.
I like the other Kung Fu Pandas. I'm not excited for this one. How much more can you do?
Kung Fu Panda and Dune at the box office, battling against each other.
Battling it out. Only one can have IMAX.
What is the next big movie to come out?
Maybe Planet of the Apes?
Or
maybe Godzilla, if you want to consider that. That looks crappy, though.
Godzilla X-Con.
Yeah. I've seen like a clip of like Kong is like riding Godzilla.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's going on?
I know, it's kind of goofy. I mean, it's probably going to be fun. But like,
I mean, I'm going to go.
Godzilla's just kind of goofy.
Not expecting
I much prefer like the scary Godzilla.
I like
from
Godzilla
-1, you know?
Like, he doesn't need to be good.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's a monster.
A nice Godzilla.
Yeah.
Anti-hero Godzilla. I want Menace Godzilla.
Yeah.
I want Menace Kong. I don't know.
Well, that concludes this podcast because we just ran through this, so maybe a short episode, but hopefully
we did just do the first Dune. So
we just did do the first Dune. That was
pretty similar.
Yeah. Watch them back to back. Do a double feature.
Yeah, go watch our other Dune podcasts.
Yeah, go back to Dune Part 1. We go more in depth in like a lot of the world building stuff in there. But yeah, really good. I'm excited to rewatch. Peace.